Alright, hello everyone. Welcome to our very first part of theoretical learning because previously was actually our explanation of the units, right? So this is basically our very first lesson for data analytics for business. Now, within this session, right, what we are going to go through is the very foundation of data analytics for business, which we are going to tackle three important things. The very first one is the definition of data analytics. The second one is the purpose of why should we learn data analytics, and last one is the level of data analytics. Now let's go to the very first one, which is the formal definition of data analytics. Right. So what is the definition for data analytics? So in here, we can focus on few things, which is data analytics is the science of analyzing, sorry, let me just change to yellow, analyzing raw data to draw conclusions. All right, so basically, in the simplest term, data analytic is basically you analyze the raw data and then you draw the conclusion from the raw data. And the way you analyze the data, there are few methods which we are going to learn after this. The very first one, most probably descriptive. Second one is dynastic. The third one is predictive, and the last one is prescription. All right, so that thing we are going to learn after this. Now, moving forward, let me ask you a very important question. The important question is, why do you think we need data analytics? This is very important question. Now, to understand, sorry, give me 1 second. All right. So now to understand why this is so critical, right? Let's look at this scenario that plays out in business every single day. Look at this question: how much stock should we order for the next month? All right, so now I want you to think from traditional point of view first. All right, so traditionally, how does a manager answer this? They basically rely on the gut feel. They look at their past experience. They have a hunch about what the market is doing, or they just say, well, let's order what we ordered last year roughly. All right, so this is purely guesswork, and guesswork is actually a hit or miss game. If you guess too high, you overstock and waste cash. And if you guess too low, what happen is you understock and lose out on sales, right? So this implementation traditional method is actually not good. All right, now let's look at the same exact decision but powered by a data analytic. Instead of using hunch, we use a model that learns from real tangible evidence, which is the historical data. We account for seasonality and we look at the live demand signal, which is we utilize the whole data to draw the conclusion, right? So the results that are going to be is not a guess, right? It is not a guess, but it is basically a model tell us to order exactly 1,240 units, and when the order says, right, order 1,240 unit, it is actually the evidence base. You have the right amount of stock to maximize your profit. So ultimately, this is the exact same question, but analytics swaps a costly, risky guess for a decision you can mathematically defend. This is how a modern business optimize their operation, maximize their margin, and outpace their competitors. All right, so that's why it is very important for us to use data analytics and not using the gut feels. Now, let's go to the next thing. How can we use data analytics? All right, so how do we actually do that? How do we go from the messy spreadsheet to a clean business strategy? Now, look at the data at the left, right, which is this one. Look at this data at the left. What we can see is this is a typical data that you will encounter in the real world. It is a customer CSV file, all right, customer CSV file, and it is messy. We have a few missing edge over here, if you can see over here, and we have a null value for the data usage. So this one null values, right? And we also have customer who already churned and left our services. All right, so this is the typical data. If you just stare at this raw data, right, it doesn't really tell you what to do. It has to go through our analytics engine. This is where the core work of this unit happen. We clean out all of this error. We clean out this one, and then we model the patterns, and we model the patterns, and we extract the insights. All right, this is the insight. What comes out on the other side is no longer raw data. This one is no longer the raw data, but this is a strategy. So this is how we can utilize the data analytics. The very first one is we clean the data, and then we understanding the data, and we modeling the data. Eventually the output, right, the output is going to be the strategy, or we can actually draw the conclusion if we remember our definition just now, right? If we remember our definition just now, basically data analytic is the science of analyzing raw data to draw the conclusion. So that is how we actually use data analytics. Now let's move forward. There are actually four types of data analytic. As we mentioned previously, we have the very first one, which is the descriptive analytics. That is the very first one. The second one is we have dynastic analytics, right? And the third one is we have predictive analytics, and the last one is prescriptive analytics. All right, so I just wanted you guys to know each of this one is actually related to one and another. So the very first one, we do the descriptive analytics, and then dynastic analytics, and then predictive analytics, and prescriptive analytics. Now let's focus on the very first one first, which is the descriptive analytics. All right, so descriptive analytics. Okay, all right, so let's focus on this descriptive analytic. So what this descriptive analytic is, basically this one is to answer your question of what happened. All right, if you have this question of what happened, this actually the whole process of analytical happen at descriptive analytics. All right, so this is one of the example for descriptive analysis, which is monthly sales report or website traffic number. All right, it gives us a perfect hindsight, but it doesn't really explain the why. Now the why thing is going to be explained in here, the second one, which is called dynastic analytics. So dynastic analytics is to answer your question, why did it happen? Alright, so if our descriptive report shows a sudden drop in sales during the dynastic analytics, right, this is where you need to help dig into the data to find the root cause where you started to gaining the actual insights. Alright, so this is the dynastic. Alright, now the next thing is predictive analytics. So what is predictive analytics is basically we are starting to move from the hindsight to the foresights, right? Which is we are going to use predictive analytics, and this answers our basic question of what will happen. And in here, right, we are going to utilize the historical data. I'm going to show you later how does this one work, but this one is going to utilize the historical data to actually modeling for the forecast future trends. All right, so as example is predicting what our sales will look like in the next quarter based on the current momentum. So that is basically what predictive analytic is. And the last one is when we already done the whole three things, right? We have the most advanced level, which is called prescriptive analytic, which answering our question, what should we do? This doesn't really just predict the future, but this one recommend a specific action to take advantage of that prediction. All right, so as example, it might recommend you a specific pricing move to ensure we maybe hit our sales target. So this is example of from descriptive to prescriptive analytics. All right, so we have descriptive, dynastic, predictive, and prescriptive. Now let's go to the next thing. Now in this slide, right, we are going to learn, let me just reset this one first. We are going to learn how this one related to one and another. All right, so let's start with the most basic one. All right, the most basic one is basically a descriptive analytics. In here again, remember descriptive is about what happened, right? In here we can see our top level metric at a glance. All right, so the very first one, we can see we have 2.4 million revenues, right? We can see we have 84,200 of active users, and we can see the retention rate, which is 92%, and we can see all of our charts and everything. So this is what descriptive is, which is something like dashboard. You can see the whole thing. of what actually happens. So this is the descriptive analytics. Now, moving forward to the diagnostic and analytics, right? So let's say we have a sudden drop over here. We have a sudden drop over here. This is where it require you to actually diagnose what's actually happened in this phase. I mean, why does suddenly in one of the quarter the sales suddenly drop? So this is where we actually utilize dynastic analytics. This one is a different skill set where it require you to actually analyze why this thing happens. All right, so this is dynastic analytics. Now the next one is predictive analytics. So how does predictive analytics work is basically you do the forecasting things, all right, which is you predicting the future based on the historical data within these cases, right? Because we just wanted to labeling, right? So this one in the yellow here is sorry, this is one is ugly. So this one in yellow over here is historical data. All right, this one is historical data. All right, and for this predictive analytic, we are going to utilize all of this in the yellow box, right? We are going to utilize this to actually forecast future data. We just assume the red box is actually the future trends, right? So what's going to be happen in the future? So basically all of this data this historical data will undergo ML training, which we are going to learn, if I'm not mistaken, in week 8 and 9 about classification and regression, where we can eventually forecast or predict the future. All right. If it is accurate or not, that is a different story. But we are going to utilize this historical data to actually provide a specific AI model where we can actually forecast the future. All right. So that is predictive analytics. All right, so the next thing, let me just cancel this one. The next thing, when we already done the whole things, right, we have something which is called prescriptive analytics, which to answer our basic question of what should we do. All right, so what should we do? So in this prescriptive analytic, if you remember from the descriptive, where we try to understand what happened, and then dynastic, but what happened? That's correct. So from the very first one, descriptive, what happened, and then dynastic, why it happened, and then the third one is predictive, what will happen, and lastly is what should we do. So we utilize the whole things that we have learned from the predictive model, from the dynastic, and from the descriptive. We try to make decision, right? So this is what prescriptive is. And in this case, right, in this example, what this thing does is basically it just use AI recommendation to actually provide the action after we already understand the whole issues from the descriptive to predictive. All right, so this is what prescriptive are. All right, so I think that's it for this session. See you in the next video.